There are games that set standards, create genres, and move the industry forward. You know, sometimes a game comes out and everybody looks at it and thinks, oh man, we've been doing this all wrong. This is how it's done. When 3D games first started being a thing, there were a lot of problems. People didn't quite know how to make a game in 3D, and because of that, this generation had a lot of figuring things out. It makes no wonder why a lot of games had a pretty poor transition to 3D. It didn't matter if you were a bangin' developer, because the third dimension, oh man, it was a whole new world. But then Nintendo comes along and just nails it. They're one of the very few companies that built their empire by making 2D games and had their very first go at 3D be so good, it laid down the rules on how you make a 3D game. Y'all know what it is. Super Mario 64, dude. It's widely regarded as one of the most important games of all time, and that's because it was the very first game that ever had full 360 analog control in conjunction with a fully controllable camera system, and no matter what the angle, you would simply push the stick in the direction you wanted to go. I mean, that sounds simple today, but back then, that was huge. Having full control over the character being a separate entity from full control over the camera was one of early 3D's biggest problems. That's why so many early games either used tank controls or had fixed camera angles that were beyond the player's control. In fact, Michel Ancel, the creator of Rayman, stated that Ubisoft originally wanted him to make Rayman 2 with tank controls because that was the standard at the time if the player got to control the camera. But this man looked at Mario 64 and thought, no, this right here, this is the new standard. So he decided to go for it, even if it was intimidating to achieve that sort of full-on control at the time. In fact, the higher-ups at Ubisoft even told him he was crazy for it.
Like, you take it for granted now that you just push the joystick and the character will go where you push it, but that was not done until Mario 64.
And when we did that on Rayman, people at Ubisoft, they were like, "You're crazy!
Yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah. This is not the car control."
And in the end, he was absolutely right. Tank controls were a thing of the past. I mean, play any 3D game nowadays, and even still, this is the standard. The things this game did for the industry are unparalleled, and because of that, I guess it really is one of the most important games in history. But as a piece of history, it still is a product of its time. I've reviewed B-grade platformer after B-grade platformer on this channel. It's really rare that I ever check out the big boys, but I think the time has come. You know, it's been more than 10 freaking years since I last played this game to completion, so why don't we do it all over again and see if this game still really holds up?
It's me, Mario!
Oh, there it is. The first time we ever got the pleasure of hearing Martinet's voice in a main series Mario game. Oh yeah, Mario's head. Who could forget about this? At the time, this was actually mind-blowing. Like, look how detailed we can get a thing to look on the N64. Of course, you can only get it this detailed when it's the only thing on screen, but it was really cool how you could tug on Mario's face and mold him in these stupid shapes. Of course, this was only done to prove that, yeah, this is in fact running in real time, but man, I must have spent hours of my life doing this when I was younger. I know you all pulled his mustache up to look like he was wearing sunglasses. I did it, you did it, we all did it. Oh my god, I forgot how good a file select screen this game has. I love the texture here. It's as if we're looking at the side of a question mark block, or maybe inside one. I don't know, it's just super cool. And that music, man, I could listen to that for hours. I have listened to it for hours. Blah, 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 the princess and the cake, and hey, there he is. There's Mario, my boy, in beautiful 3D for the, well, maybe not beautiful, but in 3D for the very first time. So, you've probably heard like a billion people talk about how this open area is a very smart design choice because it allows the player to grow accustomed to the controls, and, well, yeah, it really does deserve all of the credit it gets. It was a really good design choice, having you start in a wide open area where you can familiarize yourself with the controls. But, it's not just about figuring out what all of the buttons do. It's more so about figuring out how Mario interacts with his environment. You know, this is the first time you would have been in a 3D space, so you gotta figure out how Mario responds to all of this. You gotta learn how swimming works, how climbing works, wall jumping, grabbing on ledges, how Mario responds to a hill, how the physics and gravity feel. Everything you need to test all of these different things is available right here in this opening area. You need a few practice swings before you can hit a home run, right? For a lot of people, myself included, This was the first 3D game of its kind for them, so having a room like this where the player has enough room to familiarize themselves with each different aspect of the game's mechanics before actually needing to know how any of it works to make any real progress, it really is genius game design. It's also really funny how they didn't expect people to really grasp the idea of an in-game camera either, so they tried to make it as literal as possible, telling you that Lakitu is the cameraman and you can control how he set up the shot, as if the C button were controlling a character rather than this nameless ideological mechanic that nobody really understood yet. These are all things we take for granted now, things that don't need explaining because they've been around forever, but it's impressive how creative Nintendo would get in trying to explain something so new. I always loved this game's hub world, a castle full of paintings, each painting leading to a new course. Even as a child, I was in love with the idea. A world existing within a painting? I mean, a picture tells 1,000 words, right? That concept became a lot more interesting to 6-year-old James when he realized those words could be about Super Mario fighting bob-ombs and collecting power stars. That's the name of the game here, collecting stars. I guess this is usually the part of the video where I'm like, it's the game's collectible, comparable to stars from Mario, like everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say that, but here I am talking about this game that I always draw comparisons to, and like, man, do I really have to treat this video like nobody knows nothing about this game? There are 6 stars in every stage. Each star is bolstered behind a mission title that gives you a hint at what you gotta do, and that's what it really boils down to. You gotta do a thing in the stage, and you're rewarded for said thing with a power star. This could be defeating a boss, reaching a certain area, collecting 8 red coins, yada yada yada. After collecting more and more stars, you'll unlock more and more levels. The object in the end is collect enough stars to unlock Bowser's stage. It doesn't matter which stars you got, they're all of equal value, meaning it's possible to skip over objectives you don't like or don't feel like doing in favor of ones you'd rather do instead. This is a structure that I've always praised in games. Ty the Tasmanian Tiger has it, Gex has it, even newer games like Yooka-Laylee and A Hat in Time have it. The beauty of this formula is how it allows you to pick and choose what parts of the game you'd like to complete, making the experience as stress-free as possible. Mario 64 pulls it off better than any other game though. I mean, hell, there's enough stars that you can finish the game without touching a single level on the second floor. So if you're thorough with the foyer and basement levels, that means no tiny huge island, no tall mountain, no tick-tock clock, and no rainbow ride. If that's how you want to go about it. But obviously, I wanted to judge the game as a whole for this playthrough, so I nabbed all 120 stars anyway. However, for a casual playthrough, you only need 70, meaning there's an insane amount of wiggle room to skip over the stuff that you don't want to do. So before we get into the level design, why don't we talk about how Mario controls. As you know, Mario's got a pretty sizey moveset. Triple jump, long jump, backflip, dive, wall kick, side somersault. The amount of ways you can get Mario's body from point A to point B is absolutely brilliant. I mean, when you make a game that's all about getting yourself from one spot to another, you're gonna want to have as much variety in that as possible. That means you're gonna want as many ways to move yourself as you can jam on in there. But of course, there isn't variety in the jumps just for the sake of variety either. Every single one has an essential purpose that could make it more helpful than any of the other jumps given the situation. For example, you might not have the space for a triple jump, so you could side somersault into a wall kick, but maybe the wall isn't angled right, so you can try a backflip. The beauty of this is that there is not one given solution to any jump or obstacle. Instead, you've got a bag of tricks that you can freely pull from to solve any scenario as you see fit. And with such a wide moveset, you can really master this game and cheese your way past some areas. Like up here on Tall Mountain, you're supposed to climb to the top, go in this wall, and go down this big ass slide all the way down here to the drop zone where you can get the power star. Or, if you're hot shit like I am, you can climb above the drop zone, side somersault towards the cliff with enough forward momentum to make you fall off the ledge, dive into the cave, and presto, you got a power star, and you didn't do nothing you was supposed to do because I'm cool as hell, and I do what I want. I never really realized just how useful this dive is, too. I was always afraid of overshooting platforms with it, but being able to jump out of it so quickly really makes it easy to get a little extra distance out of every jump without the fear of, knocking your dumb ass off the stage. Mario 64 is one of those beautiful games where you really feel like you're in total control of the character. You have the means to propel Mario in any direction you want with any amount of momentum you want, and since the moveset is all momentum based, it creates a great toolkit to work with while keeping the game challenging. Any other game would just give the character a double jump, and while there have been tons of fantastic games that do use double jumping, I always kinda just saw it as a lazier alternative to what could be a much more interesting moveset. Being able to jump out of a falling animation and just cancel all of your momentum so you can line up the landing every single time, well, where's the challenge in that, right? Mario's moves are entirely executed from the ground, with the exception of the dive, but while the dive will get you more distance out of a jump, it does not guarantee a safe landing because it doesn't cancel your momentum. So instead of being able to just assure an accurate landing every time, you still need to develop the skill set to properly use all of these moves to your advantage. Does that make sense? I get a lot of comments disagreeing with the opinions I've expressed over double jumping in the past, so I really wanted to try and make it a little more clear how I really feel about it. I would just rather a moveset more interesting, you know? Something like this in Mario 64, it just feels so much more organic, while a double jump oftentimes can make a moveset simply feel robotic, like you're just going through the motions to accomplish every single landing the same way each time, instead of every jump being a feat in itself. And because of this, Mario 64 is one of the most satisfying games on the planet to get good at, and that is why Mario 64 is one of the most popular games to speedrun. There are so many times when you do not have to do things as intended because of stuff like this, though sometimes it is a little downright stupid how easy it can be to skip segments with a long jump. Take this right here in Wet Dry World. You're supposed to use these moving blocks to get across, but who in their right mind's gonna waste their time on doing something like this when you can just clear the whole gap with a long jump? Easy. Same right here in TikTok Clock. I mean, like, you expect me to deal with all this? Nope, I'm not doing it. Long jump, done, easy. Now, this kind of freedom isn't totally abusable, though. I mean, there are moments when you can do this, but overall, I don't really think it hurts the game's core integrity as a platformer. If you gotta do something to get a start, chances are you're probably gonna have to do it. You might be able to take some shortcuts here and there if you're good enough at the game, but don't expect to be doing any major skips unless you've got like speedrunning levels of skill. I mean, I'm good at the game, but I'm definitely not panning quick, if you know what I'm talking about. Now, while I do adore this game's wide moveset, the controls are definitely one of the more roughly aged parts of this game. Firstly, this stick. Oh my god, it was a godsend in '96, but it is a curse in the modern age. The N64's control stick, plain and simple, it sucks. It really sucks. Having the actual ball that rotates on it being so small and the stick not having a proper rubber coating for a comfortable grip, it can make executing some of these moves, most notably the side somersault, a chore and a half. Luckily though, it's not 1996 and we do have better options than this now, like the Wii U version. Playing with a Pro Controller felt so much better than using this pile of stick, but even still, with a better controller, it didn't fix the issues entirely. Smaller and more precise movements with Mario can be downright impossible sometimes. The level of accuracy just is not here, and that's not a problem for the vast majority of the game. Nintendo, understanding their technical limitations, designed levels with large platforms that did not require total accuracy, and it works super duper well. But that only lasts until you get much further on into the game. It was mostly an issue for me during TikTok Clock. Sometimes something as easy as turning around was really difficult to do without falling off the ledge of this tiny little platform. And this brings me to the level design. It's not as good as I remember it. Well, not so much the physical design of the levels themselves as it is the mission structure that takes place in the level. A lot of people give this game hell for it nowadays, and after replaying it, I gotta agree. I hate that it boots you from the stage every time you get a star. I can forgive Mario Sunshine for it, since the stage has a totally different setup and execution for every mission, and Mario Galaxy straight up has different levels within the area, but Mario 64, this game does it in such a repetitious manner. Take Whomp's Fortress for instance. Mission 1 is climb to the top and fight the boss. Mission 2 is climb to the top again and climb a little further. Tall Mountain is really bad for it. Half of the missions have you climbing to the top of this thing just to do something different at the top. Climb up here and get this star. Climb up here, get this star. Climb up here and pick up this monkey and get the star. Like, come on, guys. Tick-tock clock is horrible for it too, but to add insult to injury, every star only requires climbing to a certain point of the clock. So it's like, climb a bit, exit level. Climb a bit higher, exit level. Climb even further, exit level. This would not be an issue if you could just continue climbing after grabbing a star. The 8 red coin stars in the Bowser stages don't boot you from the level, so I don't see why they can't all be like that. I understand that some of these stars require a preset condition to exist, like this snowman's body being here or the ship being raised, but these things could have easily been reworked to have fit a smoother structure. Personally, I think they should have played it Banjo-Kazooie style and let you continue on climbing after nabbing every star. It's not really a problem in the earlier stages when you're doing something totally different on a different part of the map. It's when you clump every star across the same linear path. It feels like the game's been padded out rather than fleshed out. I mean, Gex 2 of all games did this better. Every remote in that game requires experiencing a totally different part of the level. There's no retreading territory again and again and again. Now, that's not to say navigating your way to these areas isn't fun. In fact, it's a freaking blast. We're talking about Mario 64 here. But when you're asking me to do the same thing over and over, even in Mario 64, there's a point when it can be a little bit too much. I think Mario 64's strongest levels are the more open-ended areas with evenly spread terrain with plenty to do. I'm talking Bob-omb Battlefield, Big Boo's Haunt, Lethal Lava Land, Hazy Maze Cave, both water levels and snow levels, and Wet Dry World. These are all examples of great levels with things spread around aplenty. I don't feel like I'm navigating the same linear obstacle course just to get to a point of it. I feel like it's a big old playground where I can go in any direction I please, and I gotta do something unique every time. And on the other hand, I think Mario 64's weakest levels are the linear obstacle courses that circle up a mountain and require to stop at a certain point on the path to do something. I'm talking Whomp's Fortress, Tiny Huge Island, Tall Mountain, and Tick-tock Clock. Now, luckily, the stages I have this problem with are greatly outweighed by the ones that don't share this repetitive nature as prominently. And before you take to the comments defending this game because of cartridge space and technical limitations, yes, I know. That's why they made you do different things in the same level instead of making tons and tons of levels like in Mario World, because of limited hardware and space and whatever, but that doesn't mean you need to make players do the exact same thing in a level more than once. Anyway, I'm done ragging on about this whole thing. Why don't we move on to something different, like the next thing I don't like about this game, and that is how easy it is to die. A lot of levels have instant death pits, meaning if you screw up a jump, it's bye-bye, and you're starting all over again. And regarding what I said before, this is not an issue for the more open-ended levels, but when you're climbing Tick-tock Clock for the 100th time, and you gotta start all over because some dickhead decided to put one of these things in the level, well, that's when we got a problem. I hate Tiny Huge Island for it. This is such a clunky-ass stage that's way too easy to fall off of. It's a novel idea, switching between character sizes, but the stage itself, it is a bulky, chunky mess that's way too easy to bust your ass open trying to get around it. And these sand pits and shifting sand land are the bane of my existence. Oh my lord. I think a big part of what makes this a problem is the knockback animation for when you jump at a wall. I mean, what happens in any other Mario game, right? You enter this silky smooth sliding animation, giving you a chance to recover, you know? And they were quick to learn from this mistake because they changed it only one game later, but unfortunately here, hitting a wall knocks you back into this animation that you can't really do much with, and it will cost you your life. This can happen a lot of times where it really shouldn't because you cannot always get a good look at where you want to jump. There's a lot of areas in this game that absolutely refuse to let me turn the camera all all the way around to face the direction I want to go. Like, dude, I can't get a proper jump in if I can't see where I'm jumping. Please, turn around. There's no reason. There's no reason. Turn around. What are you doing? This is honestly the worst thing about this game. The camera. I get that it's their first time doing it, and honestly, for the first go, they did a pretty swell job. But there are times here and there where it just refuses to turn around. For no reason. Okay, I know it probably just sounds like I'm just ripping into the game at this point, but you gotta remember, this is the big boy. I only give it so much shit because it's the king. I'm not just gonna blindly suck its dick because it's one of my favorite games ever made, you know? I ain't that kind of guy, but I think we're past the point in the video where I really got all of my criticisms of this game out. We're done talking about the jank, so why don't we flip things over and get down to what makes this game legendary. Mario 64 has a wonderful sense of mystery. The way you gradually unlock more and more parts of the castle, it's not like any of the levels where you get the whole thing at once to explore to your heart's content. You come back between every star, unlocking it very slowly, room by room, area by area. I remember getting so freaking excited as a kid to see where these big keyhole doors went. And this is some genius design right here too, having this one in the main foyer not be the first key you get, despite it being the first locked door you see. I run up to this thing and it's like, wrong one, Bubbo, and at that moment I'm like, oh my god, there's even more to this castle than I thought. I was so excited to slam dunk this thing in that keyhole that I mashed through those text boxes just to get back to the castle ASAP. And who could forget when you come back to the foyer and you see that mysterious light coming from the ceiling? Like, what the heck is this? So you look up to see what it's coming from and whoa, takes you to the stage and we're already flying in the air, dude. This is rad as hell. This is one of 3 stages where you can unlock one of Mario's special caps. The other 2 being the vanish cap, allowing you to phase through mesh walls and fences, and the metal cap, letting Mario walk underwater. These cap stages are all hidden within the castle. I always loved how the metal cap stage is actually hidden in Hazy Maze Cave and not the castle itself. I sure as hell didn't expect that as a kid. It also took me forever to get to it because I was too scared to do this part. Between the phrase swimming beast in the cavern and that murky silhouette floating around out there, dude, I wasn't going near that thing. I had to get my older sister to do it for me. When I found out that Metal Mario lay just beyond it, oh man, I was a happy little kid. Oh dude, what's so brilliant about these cap stages is that they start with Mario already in the form, which is awesome because immediately you get a taste of what you're going to unlock. So you're like, dude, this rules, hell yeah, I want to finish this level and get this thing. After hitting the switch, blocks containing these hats will be added to certain levels. It's not so much like Mario power-ups in the past where it was simply a crutch to help making clearing the stage a bit easier for you, but rather it's more like a tool to complete an objective. There's plenty of stars that require these hats, and they actually give you a reason to journey back to previously played stages after unlocking the caps. Honestly, I always really preferred when Mario power-ups served more purpose than just making the game easier. They went back to doing it that way in Mario 3D Land and World, and like, I don't know dude, I just wasn't feeling it in those games. Power-ups felt like they mattered so much more to the quest when you actually needed them to progress. Instead of just making a level more doable, it adds a spin on something, creating a new way forward, you know? Like in Jolly Roger Bay when you gotta use the metal cap to sink below this current of water, or in Big Boo's Haunch, you gotta use the vanish cap to phase through this painting. Oh dude, this was my favorite level as a kid. I mean, like, I was always into the Haunted Mansion levels, right? Those eerie messages telling you that ghosts don't die whenever you defeat a Boo. Also, I swear I must have been the only kid on the planet who was never that freaked out by the mad piano. I mean, like, yeah, it startled me. I didn't expect it, that's for sure, but like, it didn't make me terrified of the game or nothing. What did that for me was this big fish, dude. This is the real scary shit in this game. Why ain't nobody talking about this? He kills you in one hit, swallows you whole, boom, dead. I didn't even want to get near the water in this game thanks to this prick. I didn't want to go near the water in any video game because of this guy. The mad piano, on the other hand, I just knew it was gonna attack me if I got near the thing. It wasn't gonna like kill me in one hit or anything. I don't really see the big deal with this one. I don't know, dude, maybe even back then I had balls of steel for scary stuff in games, but my personal fear of water, that's what always kicked my ass. I mean, Unagi the eel didn't help me one bit either. God, that thing's freaky. I can imagine the amount of people who'd want to put a bounty on whoever wrote Mario 64's guidebook, too. It claims that with enough effort, you can defeat the Mad Piano. Oh my god, I remember reading that as a kid and then trying to fight this thing for at least half an hour. I tried everything. Punching, kicking, ground pounding. I remember I even went and got the Vanish Cap and came back and tried to fight it, but nothing would work. And that's because it's bullshit. You can't beat the Mad Piano. It's invincible. So why they wrote that in the official Nintendo's player guide? Why did they do that? Were they trying to troll kids, or was somebody just misinformed? If somebody actually knows why, please tell me. I've been wondering this my entire freaking life. And another thing that scared me in this game was the endless staircase. The music, dude! This was the first time I ever heard a shepherd tone, and my brain had no idea what the hell it was listening to. You know, this eerie music that kept magically escalating infinitely? You know, kind of like the stairs themselves. Man, I didn't even want to go in this room until I had enough stars to fix it. It was like a curse that never ends. Wet, dry world. Now that was a super cool level. You can change the water level by touching these switches, but the level it starts at is determined by how high you jumped into the painting, and you can cheat your way to the second area, skipping the cannon if you enter with a triple jump, getting the water high enough to hop over the fence. I felt like a genius figuring that out as a kid. Oh man, and how Hazy Maze Cave's entrance is not a painting, but it's this puddle of, I don't know, metallic liquid, whatever Metal Mario's probably made out of. I don't know what it was, but it looks cool as hell. And how the entrance to Shifting Sandland wasn't a painting or anything at all. It was just a wall, and they had this geniusly placed rabbit right here, making you dive at him, hitting the wall behind him, making it jiggle so you knew something was up. That's how I found this one as a kid. Brilliant design right here. I always thought it was weird how Shifting Sandland had the same music as Lethal Lava Land. I mean, they repeat music a lot in this game. I didn't mind most instances, like reusing Bob on Battlefield's theme for Womp Fortress, but when you're hearing it again in Tall Tall Mountain and in Tiny Huge Island, God, and don't even get me started on the Slider theme. I used to love that song, but I was so sick of it by the end of this playthrough. I think I'm pretty all over the place by now, but the point should be pretty clear. There's a lot of really cool things about this game that even 20 some odd years later, I still really love. I did run into a lot of annoying moments because of the primitive controls and camera, and the level design held back by hardware limitations, but the core game is still structured so remarkably well. Repetition aside, I did enjoy 100%ing this game again. Got on my nerves here and there, yeah, but it's forgivable because of just how fun this game still is. You know, even after all of these years, I do still really like this game. As a product of its time, even with all of the issues I do have with it now, I think it holds up surprisingly well, especially considering this is the first 3D platformer Nintendo ever made. They made a perfect formula that they would continue to expand on and perfect as the years went on. If you ever really wanted to give this game a try because you somehow have never played it before, I definitely recommend playing it on either the Wii or the Wii U, maybe an emulator, just something that doesn't require using the original N64 control stick, because that stick's just bad, man. It's just bad. Mario 64 blew everyone's minds when it came out, but the magical thing about Nintendo is it does not matter how perfect you think they've done something, they always find a way to make it even better. So, I'll see you guys next time when we take a look at Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube. See you guys then.